So with that, let me quickly here introduce Rita Soledad to our next panelist, and she will introduce herself.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, sorry about that, everybody. I'm Rita Soledad Fernandez Paulino. You can call me Soledad, and I am Wealth para Todos on Instagram and Twitter. And I want to talk to you today about building generational wealth. A little bit about me. I'm Mexican. My mother immigrated here from Mexico when she was a child. I grew up with her as a single mother in Los Angeles. My husband is Dominican. He's the first person in his family to be born here in the United States. We both met in New York City. We have 2 children, and around the age of 32 is when I started looking at our finances. And it's when I realized that we needed to make some changes in order to make sure that our children were going to be better prepared for their financial future. I used to be a math teacher. I am now a personal finance enthusiast. As every time I learn something about personal finances, I want to share with everybody else. And I do that predominantly on Instagram. I am passionate about marginalized people becoming debt-free, building emergency funds, maxing out their retirement accounts, cash flowing for whatever things they want, whether it's a wedding, a house, a new car, a new wardrobe, a party, because that's what my family likes to spend money on. We call ourselves the Puro Party Paulinos. But getting to a place where you can cash flow and not end up in debt because of those things. I strongly, strongly believe that financial literacy is a social justice issue. And as I share some facts with you about generational wealth in the United States, I think you're gonna agree. So one of the first things I want to talk to you about is what net worth looks like here in the United States. So in a survey of consumer finances in 2019, what was shown was that white families have the highest level of both median and mean family wealth, with their median net worth being around $188,000. And if we looked at the mean, the average, then it would be closer to $1 million. Black and Hispanic families have considerably less wealth than white families. And if you read on the slides, you can see how much significantly less. So in order for us to increase our net worth, we need to kind of first even know what that means. Some more dinero facts for you all. Besides our net worth being impacted by our debt, as Xavier explained a little while ago, it also has to do with how much we have in a savings account and in a retirement account. And Latinos have less participation or access even to retirement accounts. So participation in retirement accounts and retirement plans is a big factor that impacts our ability to build generational wealth. And yet Black and Hispanic families are far less likely to have even retirement accounts. So one thing that I'm hoping I'm going to convince many of you today is to look into your employer retirement account, find ways to max it out, and also if you're self-employed, ways that you can also invest. My last dinero fact for you all is, like I had mentioned before, that for those of us who do have employer retirement accounts, access varies, right? So within the Latino community, close to like less than 45% have access to retirement accounts. And then those who have access, not all of us are participating in those retirement accounts. And I could speak from my own personal experience that I wasn't always aware. And my husband didn't start participating in an employer retirement plan until he was 32. And he's a software engineer. So even though he had access to it, he wasn't aware about the benefits to using your employer retirement plan as a means to build wealth, which is why I want to always talk to you guys about these things. So some action steps, how we're going to make sure that we change these statistics regarding Latinos and generational wealth. One of the first things is that we all understand our numbers and make sure that we're monitoring our net worth so that we can increase it. I also want us to be investing in our future selves by consistently contributing into our retirement plans. And in order to make sure that we're in this for the long haul, I want us to be talking dinero with others. I want us to all be building wealth together. The more of us doing this, the better it is for our communities. So, to know your numbers. To calculate your net worth, you need to know what your assets are. So what's the amount of money that you have in a savings account, money that you have in retirement accounts, the value of a house. I personally like to think of it just in terms of money that I have available to me. But some people will also look at jewelry and cars and they can include that in their net worth. I like mine to just be pure accounts. Then also know what your debt is. Your student loans, your credit card debt, your private loans, your, I think I said auto loans already, but all your types of debt. You take your assets, everything you own, subtract your liabilities, which you owe other people, and that gives you your net worth. Now, I personally think that we should all be monitoring our net worth monthly, and ideally, it should be increasing. When I first looked at my financial status, I guess you can say, we had a negative net worth. We were married with 2 kids and we had a negative net worth. And part of that is because we had more debt than we had assets. So if you calculate your net worth and that's where you are right now, it's okay. With time, with consistent action, your net worth can change and it'll eventually go from negative to 0, which will be a big celebration, and then positive. And a way that you can increase your net worth is to make sure that you are living below your means. I'm a zero-based budgeter. I look at my budget, I know what our monthly bills are, and I make sure our monthly bills are less than the amount of money that we have coming in. We live below our means so that we can contribute to our retirement. At one point, living below our means allowed us to put extra money towards debt, which is why now we're debt free. Now we use that extra money to max out Roth IRA accounts and max out a 401k account. But it starts first with understanding your numbers, understanding where you are right now in terms of your debt, your assets, and creating a plan to live below your means so that you can use any extra money to go towards your financial goals. Some resources that I want to share with you all are these books. They're personal finance books that I read, which is a lot of how I got a lot of my knowledge was through reading a lot of books, listening to podcasts, watching YouTube videos, and just learning from other people and their strategies. So these are also some books that I would highly recommend to improve your personal finance knowledge. Okay, so now if you know your numbers, you know how much you're making each month, you know your income, and you know your debt, the next thing that you can work on doing is using the extra money to invest. And part of that is understanding how much money you're going to need annually at retirement. So the way you calculate that is by looking at what you spend monthly. keeping in mind that inflation, your cost of living is going to change throughout your life. And depending how you are how old you are right now, your cost of living might be very low. And for someone like me with 2 kids, as I get older, my kids are no longer living at home with me. My cost of living is going to be less than what it costs us right now to pay all our bills. So I like to use the number that I have right now. You can get information about, kind of just like generalize how much money you might need based on your lifestyle. So once you know that number, how much money you use a month, and let's say you use $4,000 a month to cover all your bills. Multiply that by 12, that's $48,000. Once you know that you need $48,000 a year, you can use retirement calculators online to calculate how much money you need to have in order to retire. And something that you'll learn is that retirement doesn't have to be at the age of 65. If you know how much money you need at retirement, then you could possibly retire earlier. There's a whole community out there called the Financial Independence Retire Early Community, FIRE community. And this community is all about retiring early. So that's another possibility. So for any of you who are just out of college, you might consider doing that sooner. Now, the types of accounts that you should be using for retirement, you want to start with your employer retirement plans. So maybe it's a 401k, a 403b, a 457. These are the plans that are associated with your employer. So in the beginning, whenever you have a new job, you have to sign up for your benefits. And you really want to pay attention to what retirement accounts your employer offers. Do they offer a match? How long do you have to be employed with the company in order to be vested in to get that match back? These are all important things to consider. And then you want to contribute to them, depending on what type of 401k, 403, 457. In 2020, the maximum that you can contribute is $19,500. And you may not need to max it out. Once you know how much money you need in retirement, you may not need to max it out. But creating a plan and monitoring how much money you put away each month is going to be a great way to make sure that you are securing your retirement and also perhaps leaving money for other people, your children, your nieces and nephews, and other people in your family. That's how we build the generational wealth. When we can start to leave gifts to other people for them to have a down payment on their house, money so that they could pay for college, that's how we are able to provide others with more than a lot of first generational families receive. Other types of accounts that you can have if you're self-employed, or if your employer does not offer a retirement plan, you can still open up a Roth IRA or a traditional IRA. Perhaps you can look into a solo 401k and a SEP IRA. The Roth IRA and the traditional IRA have a maximum contribution right now for $6,000, unless you reach a certain age, then you can contribute even more. And in terms of the solo 401k and the SEP IRA, so if you're self-employed, you can still be saving money towards your retirement. And there's so many tax advantages for doing this. I highly recommend that you do that. And if you have questions about that, let me know. So systems that you can put in place to make sure that you're saving for your retirement automatically is before you get paid with your employer, you just sign up and you tell them, I want to contribute 6% from my paycheck each month. And you get used to not even seeing that money and knowing that it's being invested and it's going to grow at a greater rate than if it was in your savings account. Some books that I would love for you to all read regarding investing are these three. The Simple Path to Wealth is what really helped me become more of a confident investor. I had like I said, I was 32 years old when I was looking at our finances. And after we became debt free and built an emergency fund, I really wanted us to start building wealth. And I knew that I needed to become a comfortable investor. And I had to transfer money that I had in a previous employer account into an IRA. And doing that rollover, I realized that once I had now my own account, and with a Roth IRA and a traditional IRA, you're going to monitor your own money. You're going to have to choose your own investments. And The Simple Path to Wealth was the book that made me feel very comfortable, very confident to choose my own investments and know that I will buy and hold low-cost index funds, and eventually that's going to help me build wealth. So I strongly recommend that. And then the other two are really good just to understand the basics. And my third step for all of you is to make sure that you consider who you're building wealth with and having conversations with your loved ones about money. So sharing what you've learned here during the summit, finding out, I know for myself, growing up, my family doesn't talk about money. And part of the reason why I created my own Instagram account is because I wanted to find a community of other people who were willing to share what their mistakes were, what they were learning, all related to personal finances. And there's a whole community online, on social media, on Instagram, on Reddit, on Twitter. There are people part of the debt-free community. And these are people who want to live life without any debt, who make plans to pay off their student loans, who make plans to pay off their mortgages like this. And it's so inspirational to watch other people tracking, their spending, tracking how their debt is decreasing. And that was part of the reason that I was able to pay off my debt, because I saw other people doing it and made it just seem like, oh, they could do it, I could do it too. And then also consider working with a financial coach. That was something I didn't even know was out there. As a first gen, my husband's also first gen, we didn't have anyone in our families who ever worked with a financial coach. But there are people who will teach you, who will work with you, who will look at your numbers, at your budget, help you set up a budget, will help you track your spending, will tell you little tweaks that you can make in order to be on a path to growing wealth. And at the end of the day, I just want you guys to know that that's possible for you, and that there's a whole community of people who are sharing their experiences. And they're also Latinos. And my Instagram for Hispanic Heritage Month, I featured different Latinos on social media who were talking about dinero. And here you can see some of them. They're all on Instagram. Some of them have podcasts. Some of them have YouTube channels. Some of them have blogs. But all of these people are on Instagram, and they're talking about their own personal journeys on how they're building wealth, and also sharing tips so that you can do the same. And that is the end of my presentation.
Excellent. Thank you, Rita Soledad. Very, very insightful presentation and touching on very interesting subjects here. So with that, I want to let the audience know that we're open for your questions. Please go to the chat feature and input your questions. We already have some questions, so let me start here. You talked quite a bit about retirement, but to many of us, retirement feels just so far away. Why do I need to think about retirement now?
And it's a good thing I'm still sharing my screen with you all, because I'm going to show you a calculator. In this calculator, let's say that you're 23 years old, and right now you have $0 in a retirement account. You're just now hearing about the possibility of opening up a Roth IRA or a traditional IRA. And I shared with you that the maximum that you can contribute a year is $6,000 when you're 23. So $6,000, you decide that you're going to do that. We're just going to contribute $500 a month. And you're starting at the age of 23. And you plan to retire at 65. And let's say, like in my example during the presentation, that you expect at retirement to spend about $48,000 a year. Well, if you make sure to contribute $500 a month all through your life until you retire at 65, do you know how much money you'll have? Well, let's calculate it. You'll see that by the time you're 65, you will be a millionaire. And what's amazing is because your annual cost of living is so low, at 80, you're going to end up having $3 million. This is the power of compound interest and why I want you to be investing in the stock market. Because let's say you live until you're 90. Well, this is going to continue to increase. And when you die, whoever your children are, whoever your nieces and nephews are, or a charity, you're going to be able to leave that money to someone. Or maybe you're also going to get to say, you know what, I'm going to spend more than $48,000 a year. I'm going to spend $75,000 a year. And even then, yes, you'll have less money at 80, but it's still going to be a lot of money. And let's say you can start to say, you know what, I don't want to retire at 65. I want to retire at a younger age. So we'll change your retirement age. Let's see what happens if you decide to retire at 50. Jennifer Lopez is like 51. Let's say you retire at 51, okay? Well, at 51, if this is all you're contributing, you will run out of money by the time you're 72. But then you can start to think, okay, well, let me not only contribute to a Roth IRA, let me also contribute to a 401k, my employer retirement account. So let's say that you put in $500 in your employer retirement account, $500 in the Roth IRA. So that gives you a total of $1,000. Plus you're getting tax advantages. Well, now contributing at the age of 23, you could retire at 51. And so you can use these types of calculators online to see, well, how long do I need to be working for? How much money should I be contributing? And I also just want to point out to you that my husband, like I shared earlier, he didn't start investing until he was 32. We have a full-on plan to max out our retirement accounts in terms of employer and Roth IRA. But notice that because he's starting at 32, even with this 1,000, he'll still he'll 65, right? So but let me just change that again so that you can see the difference. Okay, so $1,000 investment. At 65, you would have $2,968,000, but my husband, because he started later, has almost half of that. So that's the benefit of starting to invest as soon as possible. I hope that answers the question.
Excellent. No, it does. So it's a concept of time value of money. Absolutely. So we got a question through Facebook here. You mentioned mistakes and learning opportunities you had. Can you speak more about that or share something you wish you would have done differently?
I wish that at 23, when I was working as a teacher in New York City, I was doing what I could to already, I was contributing to my retirement plan. I think they must have set that up almost automatically. I wish at 23, I would have also been contributing to a Roth IRA. Time in the market is so valuable. I didn't start contributing to Roth IRA until I was 33. It's almost 10 years later. So now there's going to be so much more money that I have to put in order to retire at an earlier age. I would say that is one of my biggest mistakes that I wish I would have known about. I grew up with my family saying that the stock market was gambling. And I wish I would have done more of my own reading and understanding like I do now, like all those books that I read, because then I would know that the stock market is not gambling. It is our way to build generational wealth, in addition to real estate, right? There's real estate, and I think worldwide, a lot of us think about real estate as a way to build wealth, but investing is so passive. It's so easy.
So maybe a follow-up question to that. So let's assume that you have a little bit of extra cash. What should you do with that extra cash? Should you pay down debt first? Should you put it in the bank to try to earn? I believe interest rates are low. Or should you start investing? So is it paying debt or investing? How should you balance that equation?
I think that's a great question. And it's going to be like personal, right? It's going to depend on like what type of debt you have. A general rule though, is if you have an employer plan that offers a match, that means that they put in like 6% of your salary as long as you contribute a certain amount. That's free money. You make sure that you get that free money. Put in the money that's going to offer you your match. After that, if you do have extra money, now you need to start to think, well, what's the interest rate on my debt? If your debt is on a credit card and your credit card debt is 25% is the interest rate, you need to pay that off first. You need to eliminate that high toxic debt. Anything that's above, the numbers will vary. Some people say 4%, some people say like 9%. I would say anything above 5%, you should be focusing on eliminating that debt. And the reason being is because the S&P 500, which is the top 500 companies, right? Their average growth is around, well, it depends on whether you account for inflation or not, but let's say it's like around 10%. So if you have toxic debt that's at 25% and you're investing at 10%, well, you're not really building wealth. Your net worth isn't going to change. So you want to eliminate that debt first, bring that debt down, and then use that money to invest more.
Great. Actually, one last question here. How expensive are financial coaches or people that can help us? And are there any free services that the people in the audience here can take away to say, I like everything I heard, I'm starting to understand it, but I need someone to help me, to coach me through this?
There are definitely a lot of services out there. I started my personal journey by just reading a lot of books online and attending free summits just like this. I literally spent a year just signing up for any personal finance summit that I could attend. And after a while, you start hearing the same information. And so you start thinking, oh, okay, this is real. It's not something sketchy or something that I need to be nervous about. When you hear everyone saying the same thing, then you're like, okay, this is something that I should be doing as well. And it's also nice to hear from different types of voices too, which is why I want you to connect with people on social media and build your community of who you're going to build wealth with. In addition to that, there are financial coaches, and some financial coaches will charge you an hourly fee. And that could be like up to $150. That's pretty like normal. If you work with a certified financial planner, you want to make sure they're fiduciaries, which means that they are loyal to your interests. They're just not like trying to make a profit off of you. They'll usually charge you a percentage of your fees. There's a lot of different ways. I would say like the number one thing is to start reading those books that I shared in the slides, watch YouTube videos, listen to podcasts, because the information is the same. And once you start hearing that, then you're going to feel a lot more confident about choosing a financial coach, if that's something you still want.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Rita Soledad. Very insightful and a lot of information for everyone to take away. In addition, the